I'm Charlie Olson from the Environment TV, and today in this episode, we're going to have Melinda Tuhus speaking about an incredible walk and journey that they did for the APPALACHIA'S future down in West Virginia, from West Virginia into areas of North Carolina and Virginia. I think they ended at, she'll tell you all of the particulars of it. And she's one of the people who did the journey there. It lasted 2 weeks. And this is an incredible piece of environmental activism. And we wanted to bring that to you so you could see what else is happening in other areas of our country. So without further ado, Melinda Tuhus, you're on.
Well, okay, thanks, Charlie. So the walk and drive really was from May 24th to June 4th. We started in the tiny town of Ireland, West Virginia, where we met in a community center with some local folks who are fighting the Mountain Valley Pipeline. One woman in particular, a local woman, was very concerned about the changes to the geology and hydrology of from the pipeline, where some areas that she was very familiar with were getting less water, some were getting more water, the streams were flowing at different rates, and that changes a lot of things. So she was very concerned about that, and she was very happy that we came. She said it made her day. And her name was Rose, and she was a local woman, and she had a lot of health issues, not that they were necessarily connected to the pipeline, but it was really inspiring to see somebody with some serious health challenges really fighting, this pipeline and trying to keep it out of her area.
Were you on a highway while you were doing this, or country roads, or a mixture of different?
Well, mostly not highway. Sometimes, if we had to drive like 3 hours, we got on a highway, but mostly we were driving. Sometimes they were state roads, but they were small. And sometimes they were even smaller roads. So we knew the pipeline route is 303 miles, and we knew we weren't going to walk that. And we knew that the priority was to have time to meet with the local folks who were fighting it. So we often had like three different meetings a day with different groups, as we went along. And we probably only walked the total of maybe 15 miles. Which included about 4 miles on the Appalachian Trail, which was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful day, and it was a pretty easy section of the hike. And we walked to an event called Hands Across the AT, where people gather every year. And this was it's an ongoing thing, but this year it was we were the special guests, and there were different people speaking. Pardon me?
Was that
It was the first Saturday of whatever that date was. It was Memorial Day weekend, Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. So so the second day we were in Charleston, West Virginia, the capital, and there was a group there, a coalition that was targeting the MVP and also targeting specifically their senator Joe Manchin, for all the wrong votes that he takes on lots and lots of things. They had a big banner. It was like a vertical banner about 30 feet long, and it said, actually I should send it to you. It said, "Manchin, stop destroying our future," I think, something like that. Anyway, that was the message. And we had a retired coal miner speak, and a lawyer who does a lot of environmental work, and a woman who's from a Black area of Charleston that is home to many polluting industries, disproportionate impact on a community of color. So we went from the Capitol, we walked about 3 miles to the Department of Environmental Protection, which they like to say is the Department of Don't Expect Protection, because it's not good at all on climate issues. So we from there we went to other parts of West Virginia that followed the pipeline route. And one thing we did was meet with a woman, and I sent you her photo, Becky Crabtree. She's a woman in her late 60s. And a few years ago, she, after doing everything else that she could think of, like signing petitions and sending testimony and all, calling her elected officials and everything, and nothing had changed. She took her beloved 50-year-old Pinto, and that she had never been able to part with, and put it across the pipeline, the easement, and locked down inside it. And she was able to stop construction there for about a day. And, she said, when I interviewed her, she said, it wasn't very long, and maybe people would think that was not important, but she said it was important to me because you have to have integrity and stand up for what you believe in. And she was awesome. She's actually running for the West Virginia House of Delegates now because she feels like she didn't get any satisfaction from her elected officials. So she was wonderful. She was really inspiring. I don't know if I said she was a retired teacher, and also I just learned a published author.
Wow.
So she isn't just, any old person. She's a very well-respected person in the community. Right. So
all right, Melinda, can you tell us what the name of the event was, what the walk is, and what some of your goals were?
Sure. It was called the Walk for Appalachia's Future, which was a little misleading because we didn't really walk that much, but still, our main goal was to stop the construction of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which goes for 303 miles through West Virginia and Virginia. There was also a possible extension into North Carolina, which looks like it's not going to happen. And to promote, the need for renewable energy, get off fossil fuels, because that area is rich, has a history of coal exploitation, and now frack gas, which came in about a decade ago, and to, promote good jobs, to help people who need to transition off those old dirty forms of energy into clean energy. So those were kind of the main things. And just basically to build solidarity with these folks and to let them know that there are people all over the country who are supporting what they're doing and want them to succeed and are trying to spread the word, because the local folks have been fighting this pipeline for 8 years, and it should be dead already. I mean, it's ridiculous that it lost some of the permits it had. It didn't get other permits yet. And so it's basically construction is stopped right now, which is a really good thing, but it's not over. Right. So we're trying to, put the last nails in the coffin, so to speak.
What's the name of this pipeline?
The Mountain Valley Pipeline.
And is that the same name as it goes through different counties and different states? Yeah. Because sometimes they do change the names so they can fool people.
Yeah, segmentation. No, this is called the Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Okay. And your method was to go for about 14 days or so. And where did you sleep? How did you eat?
Well, I was going to get to that. We have a crew of, it's a cooking collective called Seeds of Peace. And we've had their services on many other actions. I'm a part of Beyond Extreme Energy, and we were one of the main groups that planned this. So we've done other events over the last 8 years, and we've had them probably at least 6 times. So for not very much money, they come and cook wonderful 2 meals a day, plus, usually sandwiches for lunch when we're on the road. They were just fabulous, as always. And where we slept, we often camped. I think we camped probably more nights than not, but we were also able to sleep inside, some public buildings a few times, and also in people's homes even a few times. So, and also if the weather was bad, our camping turned into an inside situation. So people were incredibly hospitable. It was really.
So when you say
camping, I even got 2 showers. Oh my God. That was kind of rough because some of the days were really hot. Most of them weren't, though. It wasn't too bad. In general, the weather was pretty nice.
And when you were camping out, you're talking about real tents?
Yeah, tents.
Were they pup tents or were they 5, 10 people kind of tents?
No, they were our own. Everybody brought their own tents. There was one couple and they had one tent, and then pretty much everybody else had, just slept in their own tents. We were just scattered around.
Mhm. And every day while you were out there, you were meeting new people, the local people, I believe, right? And some of
Right.
them were giving presentations, and some were sites that you actually went to,
Right.
had pollution or problems with, or had solutions, and were working on those solutions.
Correct.
Would you like to go through each of the days, or how would you like to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things was that we did meet people from all the areas that we traveled through, and they were all working to fight the pipeline in different ways and in collaboration. I mean, there was a group called Appalachian Voices that did a lot of the support work. Beyond Extreme Energy was very involved. There was something called the Power Coalition. It stands for Protect Our Water.
Did you have, by any chance, any music going there? A marching band?
Well, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm trying.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay. It was the Power Coalition, and Power stands for Protect Our Water Heritage Rights. That's a group in West Virginia. And then there was Third Act, which is a fairly new group of people 60 and over who are taking action on the climate. They were very involved in the actions in Richmond at the end. One day we had a meeting with people from the Poor People's Campaign in West Virginia, talking about this upcoming gathering in Washington on June 18th that they're hoping to have lots and lots of people at. So, there were smaller groups, just the local groups that included, faith communities and community centers where, we were given shelter and met some of those people. So, and another thing I wanted to mention that we did many times, I think we did it every day, but some were more involved than others, is Maury Johnson, who is one of the main organizers, who's from Monroe County, West Virginia, and he's a member of Power. He had these beautiful full color photographs of many people from the region who have died over the course of this struggle. And, some people felt were directly related. There was this really, really sad story of this man who was a Vietnam vet and had PTSD, and he built a house out in the, way out in the country, in the mountains, and felt like it had saved his life. And then along comes MVP and says, we're going to take an easement. It was just horrific. And he fought them, and he was so stressed out. He had a stroke. He had 2 strokes, and then he died shortly thereafter. And it was just so sad. And we went to see his place. His daughter took us there. So that was in Southwest Virginia, around Elliston, I think. But we held up these photos, and Maury would talk about, and other people would explain who these people were and what their connection was to the fight against Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Yeah, that's a great.
So that was very powerful. And just sharing that with the people that we met as we went along. We figured we probably directly talked with and interacted with about 300 people all the way along. Pardon me?
It sounds like thousands more so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did a lot of media as we went. We had somebody who was tweeting. We had people posting to Facebook. I was doing a lot of radio, audio interviews that I'm posting. So we definitely feel, and then there were other media that covered us because it was of interest.
Right.
So, you had asked about music. Yeah, we did have actually one of our walkers who was with us more than half the time. I would say maybe 2/3 of the days, was an older gentleman. He was 81, I think, from Roanoke, Virginia, named Bob. And he played the harmonica, like it was, like he belonged in an orchestra. He was just incredible. It was so beautiful to hear it. He also was a professional drummer. And at one point down in North Carolina in Chapel Hill, we had a little march from the site of the first rally to the site of another environmental disaster that was down there. And someone else was drumming, and he asked if he could do it. And he took over, and it was like, it was like a whole new level of drum playing. So that was very cool. I was actually hoping that we would have been able to hear more, music from the region. I love bluegrass music, and we heard it one day in the Saturday where we were at the Hands Across the AT, the Appalachian Trail. There was like 4 or 5 guys playing music, which was great. Because it's, that's area, that's the hub of the center of historically that kind of music, and I do really love it. So we actually talked to a few other musicians, but they weren't playing at the time we met them. So
well, that can be very inspirational as you're walking through. And
absolutely, yeah.
I've been in some places when we did rallies against fracking in Trenton, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, and Albany, outside of Washington, D.C., when we can really do a long march kind of thing. And the drums and the trumpet and guitars, I played the guitar on one of them, really inspires the marchers, as well as gathers more of the people along the sidewalks to watch you as you're going and holding the banners as you're going. You're 10 blocks long or so of people. We had that many people.
Yeah, sure.
It just pulled them in, kind of thing, and it just was very inspirational. But a harmonica, that is a nice traveling instrument. Yes. So easy to carry and blow into while you're walking.
Yeah, no, it was really a wonderful treat.
You have a banjo. I would love to know that. Did the AT Appalachian Trail people, did they have a banjo player with them?
I'm trying to remember. They either had a banjo player or a fiddle player, but not both. I'm trying to remember back now which one wasn't there. They had a mandolin and a couple guitars, and then one of those instruments.
Beautiful.
But yeah, it was nice though. Another thing I wanted to mention that was really important on the walk is that there have been a couple of animals that have been, a couple of species that have been identified as endangered along the route. And one of them is the candy darter, which is like a 2-inch long, it's like a little minnow, but it's called the candy darter because it's multicolored. It's red, green, and white. In fact, another name for it is the Christmas minnow. And it was listed, I think, about a year ago, and its critical habitat was established in places that the MVP would cross. So, it needs cold, clear water with a pebbly bottom to survive. And when they're building this pipeline, they're destroying the mountains, the hills, and they're sending, sediment. They're supposed to not send the sediment down, but it always ends up, they can't stop all of it. So there's a real danger of, muddying up the streams and destroying the habitat and of the candy darter. So one morning we had a young woman who's she's an expert on the I think she works for the West Virginia Rivers Coalition, I think it's called, Autumn Crow. She spoke to us about the candy darter. It was a wonderful presentation. And it's something that as long as the Endangered Species Act is still on the books, it's something that could prevent the construction, because if it's shown that they only exist in a few places now, and that the construction would go right through there, that should be enough to stop it. But that's things are all tied up in court and different appeals and so on. But we're hoping that that's one of the things that might ultimately.
Are the courts in West Virginia? Are they state courts like West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, or is it federal courts or local?
Well, they're mostly, the endangered species is all federal because it's a federal law. And, they have the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. A lot of things go there.
Mm-hmm. But your groups, are they going legally through the state system or the local city system?
Well, there's different permits. The states all have to give certain permits, and the feds have to give other permits, and they all have to be in place for them to be able to legally proceed with construction. So they're trying, they're appealing at all different levels. Yeah. And actually that was called the MVP, some kind of extension into North Carolina, was turned down twice by the state's Department of Environmental Quality. Mm-hmm. They call their state environmental agency. So it's pretty unlikely that part would happen, and we hope none of it happens. But the thing that's really so infuriating is that they've already stolen the land from all these people who didn't want to give an easement. I mean, they give them compensation, but they don't want compensation. They just want their property. So there's a big movement of landowners, and the damage has been done. So the pipeline is, according to the company's documents, is 55% complete at full restoration, they call it, but they can't really restore anything. They plant grass on top, and that's considered fully restored. But then 45% isn't even to that level, and they can't cross any of the water bodies until they get these permits, if they get them back. And a pipeline could be 99.99% finished, and if there's a little place that it isn't done, then they can't use it. So they're definitely in trouble. They're several $1 billion over budget, and 2 or 3 years past deadline that they thought they would be done. And they're still, they still don't know if and when they're going to be able to start building it again.
And what kind of transmissions material will be inside the pipeline? So will it be other cables for electricity, or is it gas, or is it coal that's been changed into some other form?
No, it's frack gas from northern West Virginia. Yeah, and that this is a funny story. It wouldn't benefit any of the people or the towns where it's going through. It would be just a straight shot through the states for likely export as liquefied natural gas. And with the war in Ukraine, there's this big demand for LNG in Europe, unless we can send them, heat pumps instead for clean energy. But one of the women, actually Becky Crabtree, that the woman who put her Pinto across the easement, she said, well, we really don't have access to gas that much, so I'd like to hook into this. Can I do that? And they said, sure. And she said, well, how do I do it? What would it cost? And they said $1 million. So they're not really intending for anybody, any local people, to benefit from this.
It doesn't sound like it at all. It's all for export and for the corporations,
right?
Stockholders and the bondholders there. Yeah. You want to talk more about some of the days activities that you guys did?
Sure. I'm scrolling through my journal, which I helpfully kept because I wouldn't remember anything otherwise. Well, it was interesting. The morning that we heard the talk about the candy darter, then we were in White Sulphur Springs, which is home of the famous Greenbrier Resort, which is named for the beautiful river that flows through there and is owned by the current governor and coal baron, Jim Justice. And we walked through town, and we were, we have these little flyers, little quarter-page flyers we were handing out about our, what we were doing. And we got almost universal, thumbs up. People definitely there did not support this pipeline. One woman ran out of her store and chased after us to tell us how much she appreciated what we were doing and how she agreed with us and wanted more information about, our walk and stuff. So that was good. We also leafleted on the Appalachian Trail, the couple hours we spent on that. And not surprisingly, everybody we gave a flyer to was, supported our position. They don't want to see the pipeline because one of the issues is, and one of the things that stopped the pipeline is that it doesn't have a permit to go under I think it's the Jefferson National Forest. And it would go right under the AT. It would tunnel under the Appalachian Trail. So people who hike the trail, not surprisingly, are not in favor of that. Then one later that day, we went up this unbelievably steep stony driveway to the top of a hill with a gorgeous house on it and a gorgeous view of the mountains. And there was a guy who lived there who bought 90 acres that apparently, like just a day or two after he closed on the property, he learned that it was going to be bisected by the MVP, and they were going to take, a piece of his property by eminent domain. So that was pretty distressing for him. And then that day we drove to Hans Creek Valley, which is where Maury Johnson lives. And it is the most beautiful place. Boy, I fall in love with that place. And we had our food and had some programming in a community, in a what do you call it? An open air, like in a pavilion that was built by the community, sort of everybody working together to put this thing up. And it was really a great spot. And we saw a movie there called, let's see, looks like I didn't write it down. Hard Road. Oh yeah. We saw a film there, a documentary called Hard Road to Hope. And it was basically about the development of, mountaintop removal, coal mining, and how then that was, fracking was introduced and how it's affected people specifically in West Virginia. So that was, it was kind of depressing, but it was also inspiring, to hear people talking about their home place and how they're going to fight to save it and everything.
Well, speaking about hope, if I can interrupt there, what is the future? What are the future plans of the group here?
Well, we are having our debrief sometime in the next week, and we don't have very specific plans. Let me just say that yet. We're going to spread the word as much as we can about what we learned and who we met and what we saw.
And that is a future goal. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah, seriously, awareness, spread the word, that kind of thing. You don't have, I assume, none of these actions, whether they're on the Tea Party side or they're on corporation sides, happen in a day. They're things that take months and years to develop, and it's a lot of communication out there just to try and win either the legislators, the business community, or the grassroots people doing their things. So it does take a while, but you got to get that information out there. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what you're doing by your actions. So that's great.
Absolutely right. And this walk or drive, whatever, this journey took several months to organize. So you're right, it didn't happen in a day. It was a lot. It was a lot of work to figure out a route and to set up camping places and food and meetings with all these different local groups. I mean, it is a lot of work. So I wasn't able to participate in the planning very much because of other conflicts, but my hat's off to the folks who did, because I think it turned out really well. And one thing before we end, I should definitely mention that a couple things. We went to the site of some famous tree sits down in southwestern Virginia. There was one, it was called the Yellow Finch tree sit. And I just learned that it was called that because that was the road it was on. It wasn't called that like they were trying to, name it after a particular animal or anything. But it went on with different people. There were two platforms, two people at a time, and it went on for 932 days until people were fine. The last two people were extracted and spent significant time in jail before even getting bail, which was just punitive because they were only charged with misdemeanors. But anyway, it was really great to see that, to actually be there. We also, at the beginning of our hike on the Appalachian Trail, we went to the site of the monopod, which was this platform that was erected on top of a tree that was maybe 30 or 40 feet high, that was blocking, the entrance to where they were working. And this woman named Nutty stayed up there 56 days with almost no food or water except rainwater, because the authorities prevented her support team from resupplying her, except if they could, occasionally get through somehow to be able to do that. So And she finally came down when activists built another obstruction a little further into the forest. And so, they didn't need her to be there anymore. But that was incredible to me. And then we also met a woman in her 60s who named Red Terry, who did a tree sit for 34 days, I believe it was, with her daughter. And they were on separate, platforms near each other. And then I found out, she told us her son had also planned to do one, but he ended up getting prevented from going up and occupying it for very long. So, but it was, it's really inspiring to meet these people who make these unbelievable commitments, to stop the pipeline. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the youngest person on our journey was a 13-year-old named Callie Coffey, who goes to school in Richmond and organized a youth-led rally on the last day, which was June 4th. And so that was the last thing before we headed home. And it was really great. She had like 5 of her classmates who were there, and she spoke, and she has quite an analysis of, capitalism and, the profit-seeking companies who are riding roughshod over people's needs and destroying the land and the water and the air. And then some of these other young people came up and they all said, Callie taught me everything I know about climate change. So it was very sweet. And they were making banners, and actually they marched, I guess, we left before this very last piece because we had a long drive ahead of us, but to get back to New Jersey. But there was a march to the governor's mansion or the state house or something. And she read a letter there that was apparently very powerful, which I haven't seen or heard yet, but I heard it was really powerful. So that's really, it's inspiring. And it's also very sad that these children need to be doing this, feel they need to be doing this instead of just being kids, but that made us, I think it made the adults more committed to, to supporting them and to stopping all this ridiculous development. The International Energy Agency, which is a pretty conservative body, and it came into being after the oil crisis of the early mid 1973, 74, to make sure that that didn't happen again, and everybody had access to the fossil fuels they needed. They said last May, that there should be no new fossil fuel construction anywhere in the world by the end of 2021. So I always like to mention that, because it's not just, crazy people like us who don't want this stuff because the climate can't tolerate it.
Actions like yours and the rest of us who sit back and admire it and then say something in our voting capacity or to our government officials that can change things at the International Energy Association or agency. And on a personal side, it sounds like you're inspired by these people, but you also made some lasting friendships with these people.
Absolutely. I mean, there were a few people in particular that I just really connected with. And, I really miss them. I miss the mountains. It's been, where I live, there are no mountains. So, and I definitely plan to stay in touch one way or another with some of these amazing folks. I also want to mention just the last 2 days we were in Richmond, and I mentioned the young people's rally on the 4th, but also on the 3rd, there's a group called Third Act, which is this older activist group, and there's a very active group in Virginia, and they did a wonderful event that had like 2 or 3 parts to it, and there was sort of a spiritual component where we had collected soil from every place we stopped along the pipeline route, and then we mixed it all together into a bucket, and it was labeled sacred soil. And there was just like a ritual where you could come and take a handful and spread it out on this cloth to indicate. We called the four directions, north, south, east, and west, and kind of the connection that we all have to soil. One of the speakers was a soil scientist who named Nan Gray, who just knows a whole lot about the soils, especially in that region, and the fact that the rock, it's karst, which is very full of holes, which is one of the reasons the water is so good, because the water percolates down into these like caves and open spaces. And then one guy told me his well was 600 feet deep, but the water really is fantastic drinking water. And as you might suspect, it's not the best terrain to be building a pipeline. There's a lot of slippage, and they have to sort of constantly repair things that are, that don't stay in place in the pipeline segments that don't stay where they put them. And so, I mean, it's so ridiculous on so many levels. But then we walked over to one of the banks, Wells Fargo. It was some kind of headquarters bank. It was really a big building. And we had a tribunal out front, and we found the CEO of the bank guilty of, all these terrible crimes. They're the biggest funder of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, Wells Fargo, and they do a lot of other really bad things too. So we went there, and we were hoping, some people were planning to go inside the bank and try to talk to, the manager, but they locked the doors and their own customers couldn't get in. So,
I wonder why.
So we finished our ceremony out in front. It was really, I thought it was really powerful. And then we sort of got up as a group and walked slowly away from, the building back onto the sidewalk. But yeah, it was, that was really powerful. So yeah, I did meet lots of amazing people, and I do plan to stay in touch. And
is there any way that we, the viewing public, can keep in contact with your group? Or
good question. Yes, we have a Facebook. Probably the most active is our Facebook page, which is just Walk for Appalachia's Future.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always point out, you don't have to be a member of Facebook to go on the Facebook page and read the stuff, because a lot of people are sort of, we don't like Facebook. And a lot of people got off Facebook who I talked to, but you can go and just read stuff there without getting, involved in Facebook yourself. That's probably the best place, I would say. We do have a website too with the same name, Walk for Appalachia's Future. But I'm looking forward to doing the debrief and finishing up. I've got a number of radio pieces that I'm working on. Some are out, and I'm working on some more.
Beautiful.
To spread the word. And
as you do produce these pieces, please send some to us, the links to these things. So we have a website called the Environment TV, and we like to put in there other people's works. Because eventually we wish to bring together as many groups as possible, not stay isolated in one spot, but to connect the dots that bring us all together. And that's your group, my group, the next group, California, Africa, all of the different groups from continents and wherever it was, South Pole, North Pole, and just to show all of that. So our website, the Environment TV, is showing 50% of other people's radio, writings, videos, kinds of things. We are.
And it's called, the website is The Environment TV.
Right, all one word, theenvironmenttv.nyc.
Oh, okay.
It's not as up to date as we would like, but it is there.
Okay.
And
that's great. That's really great to know. Thank you.
Yeah, it all depends on how many volunteers we get to actually do a lot of this kind of logistics and facilitation, whatever fancy word you want to use. At work is the best word. Volunteer. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to mention? You've mentioned a heck of a lot. You went past your time limit there, I see. It's hard to stop. I know that. I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure there's other things I didn't mention. I mean, I'm sure there are, because there was a lot, but just, I just want to thank all the people who made it happen, the people, the organizing committee, and the people of the groups that, we met with. Just, it really was, somebody was saying how she was on vacation. I didn't feel like I was on vacation because it was, it was very intense, and camping, I never sleep. So I was pretty wiped out by the end, but I love to camp. I just don't sleep. But it was, and I was doing my recording and editing and such. So it didn't exactly feel like vacation, but it did feel like a big shot in the arm, and a wonderful way to meet some really incredible people. So I wish I could go back right now. Do it again.
You are back as far as memory goes there.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And what would you like to say to our audience? Besides everything you've said, any final words to them?
Well, I guess, I guess I would just say, I'm not sure who all the audience is. Maybe you're all activists already, but I would say everyone can do something. And, if you're not involved and feel like it's something you want to get involved in, you can, I guess they can get in touch with me through you, or, there's so many groups out there, that are doing things. Extinction Rebellion actually had a small presence in Richmond at the rally, and that was good because they're, of course, they're huge in New York City, but that's another group that I really like and I've done some work with. So, it's not hard to get involved. We always welcome more people in our organization, Beyond Extreme Energy, which is a group of people all up and down the East Coast. We've always met virtually, and then we meet in Washington, D.C. Before COVID, we were meeting outside or inside the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission building, making good trouble, as John Lewis used to say. And we have ongoing work. We're trying to change FERC into FREC, the Federal Renewable Energy Commission, and we have different ways of working on that. So, I could just give my email, I guess, if anybody wants to get in touch with me directly. It's Melinda, MELINDA T as in Thomas, UHUS as in Sam at numeral 2, Melinda.Tuhus numeral 2 at gmail.com.
We'll put that right under your name. Right.
Okay.
So it'll be okay. They'll see it for quite a while.
Okay, sounds good. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, Charlie. Thank you.
I find this to be an honor to have you and such actors, really. So thank you very much.
Okay, take care.
When times grow dark and life grows mean,